Alrighty, well, let's jump in here. Boom. Okay, everybody should be able to see my screen. We're going to go through the materials brought to you by Vouris. That's my company here. You're talking to the man himself, Kyle Van Vouris. I'm Greek. Hello. Yes. All right, let's go through the promise first. So by the end of this, you'll learn how to build a playbook that systematizes your sales process so you can ramp reps faster, have more consistent performance, and scale predictably. That's my process. The sales playbook is a really critical component to having a successful sales organization. And you can see like organizations that take the sales playbook really seriously are the ones who typically do better, because it is about having a process where you can feel confident you can hire the average salesperson, have them follow this process, and they will be able to hit their number. And then the trick is, don't hire average salespeople. Hire the best possible salespeople you can. Little background on who I am for those of you who are new and might not know who I am. I've worked with over 80 now. I need to update this slide. I've worked with over 80 B2B software and service companies, helping them build a repeatable sales process. If you follow me for a while, I take a very data-driven approach to building sales organizations. I let the data really dictate a lot of the decision-making. And it's a little bit different than your typical kind of rah-rah, ask them all these like really probing questions and use these special little tactics. I like a lot of that stuff. I'm a sales guy through and through. I started as an SDR. I was an AE. I've ran teams before. So I love all that stuff. But you'll see like I take much more of a data-driven, strategic approach to building out sales organizations. I've written 3 Amazon best-selling books. One's on cold outreach called Cold Committed. The other is on leading sales teams called the Sales Development Playbook. And then the third and most recent is called 16 Steps to Building 16 Steps to Repeatable Sales. It's about building a repeatable sales process. I've helped our clients sell over 100 million in software and services, over 280 million in money raised. And the vast majority of our customers are not venture backed, by the way. And I've trained over 1,000 salespeople. So I've been around the block, both as a direct seller, like I mentioned, as well as in board meetings while sales are going great, and in board meetings when sales are definitely not going great. And I can tell you, I much prefer to be in good sales environment. I can promise you that. Cool. One big problem here, and I've already mentioned this briefly earlier. Most sales orgs allow the reps they hire to determine if they're successful instead of the process that they develop. It's exactly what I was saying earlier. You want a process that you're so confident in, you can hire the average salesperson, they can follow it, they can hit their number, and then just don't hire average salespeople. Okay, this is super common where people hire and hope, especially early stage. Cross your fingers, close your eyes, and say, please, the sales rep needs to work. This is not the approach that I recommend. So what we're going to be walking through today is an example of a template that I've put together. I will give everybody this template of what a good sales playbook looks like. Okay. Like I said, I'll give you all a copy of this, this sales playbook template. In addition to normal sales playbook template stuff, you are going to notice that there are a lot of other templates, frameworks, and stuff within it. I'm giving you everything. So if you don't have your ICPs really well built out, I have a whole template for you to follow to go and do that. You'll see it as we get there. You will have everything at the end, but don't let me forget. Like I said, I'm a one-man show. I go through all of the questions. Sometimes I blank and I forget to copy and paste a link in there. I expect you guys to hold me accountable to that. Okay, cool. Here's the sales playbook template. I'm going to go through this kind of piece by piece. I'm going to really break down each section. I'm going to skip over a couple of them that are pretty obvious so we can just get to like the real meat. Okay. Company, sales playbook. Put your company name here. Here's the overview. We organize the sales playbook into 2 like main categories. There's like this about us, the who we are, what we do, who we help, why we win, and then your roadmap to success for the sales rep. Our sales process, our buy again strategy. So upsells, cross sells, tools, mostly renewals, tools to support you, and then our performance culture. So these are the 2 main categories that we put here. Put a little about us, and then you jump right into the who we are section. Your company value should go here. This is pretty standard stuff in a sales playbook. Org chart is actually a little bit more important than you might initially think it is. It's very helpful, especially if you have a more complicated sale, but in all situations, I like it. It's very helpful to know who's in charge of what department, who reports to who, what are the responsibilities of the different departments. Having an org chart here and keeping that org chart up to date is super helpful. And why it's more helpful if you have a more complex sale is generally the best salespeople leverage internal resources really well. So I used to run inside sales at a global supply chain software company that you saw like multi-million-dollar annual contracts. So really like high level enterprise sales, 18-month sales cycle. And the number one rep, she was so good at leveraging internal resources. She would go to the board and like get them to do intros for her. Like she was a total beast at this. She had a really clear understanding of how the organization was structured, and she leveraged that understanding very well. I like putting a little welcome note from the CEO, by the way. I just think it's nice. You do you though. I think you should have that. All right, what we do. Company mission. I gave you a little template if you don't have a clear mission yet, but you should probably solve that problem. So that way we have a clear mission. The reps know about the mission. What we do, what are our product offerings? Or if it's a service, what's our service offering? What is it? What are they? What do they do? So sometimes you are selling a big platform with multiple different modules. You want to list all of that out here. It might be more than one slide. If it's very complicated, it might just be one thing if it's not, but this is where I put it really near up the front. And then also the pricing breakdown. If it's one price, you put the one price. If it's multiple different prices, put multiple different prices here. If you have specific documents that you have to use or calculators that you need to use in order to create the pricing, that should all be linked here as well. Say, I want the reps to be able to go and fully understand what are our offerings, what are the costs of all of the offerings, how do I calculate those costs if I need to. It all needs to be right there in the very beginning. Also, when you're onboarding reps, typically you're going through this material with them. So it's helpful for them to have it all in one place because it's their guide that they're walking through during onboarding. All right, who we help. So this is going to be the first like big framework or a big template that I give you. You want to have really clearly defined ideal customer profile. We use an exercise called market mapping. I'll give you the market mapping sheet in this. It's hyperlinked here in the playbook template. It covers target verticals and buyer personas. What problems do we solve for the verticals? What problems do we solve for that specific buyer persona, et cetera? Okay, so you'll have that here, but I think it's really important. And actually, I'm gonna state this really strictly. The most important thing for sales reps is to understand the buyer. I care about that way more than their understanding of the product. In fact, SDRs, I feel like shouldn't understand the product all that much in general. Like they need a high level overview. They don't need to go deep. AEs, they have to, right? Because they're going to be selling the product. I want the bias on your side as leaders to be on educating the sales reps on the buyer who buys your product or buys your service. The buyer is so important. They need to be able to speak the language. What I often say is if your sales rep can go to like an industry event, like a local, small, intimate industry event, like a meetup somewhere in their city, and nobody knows that they're a salesperson, they just think, oh, this is a person just like me, we're winning. If they can do that, we're in good shape. If they can't, that's a problem. All right, next is case studies, testimonials, and examples. Baffles me how little emphasis there is on this part of a sales playbook, but also just in general, even if you don't have a sales playbook, you really should have all your case studies in one place. The salespeople should be really educated on the different case studies, on the positive results that your product or service has generated for the customers. It's really important. They need to be able to tell those stories, right? Like you talk to a founder and they'll tell you, oh, we worked with somebody, a year and a half ago that was in this situation here, very similar to where you're at now. Your sales reps all need to be able to do that. And they do that by having a lot of documentation around the success stories. All right, next we're going to go to why we win. This is where we go into what's called the value mapping. So what I want you to have clearly outlined, very well defined, is your differentiators and what we call your value map. I give you the whole exercise here to figure it out. But essentially what we're doing is we're taking all of the value that we deliver to the customer, whether it's a product or service, we're ranking it based on how impactful that value is to the customer. Side note, it's even better when you have your customers do this. But then when we have it all ranked, we're scoring ourselves and then having our customers score how well we deliver that value. So if we said, this is value number 1, and on a scale from 1 to 5, we're giving ourselves a 3, that's probably an area we need to focus. So having really clear understanding of the value drivers for your product or service and the differentiators is really important. Differentiators especially. Okay, well, both of them equally, I would say. Now we're moving to the second part of the sales playbook. Okay, your roadmap to success. And if you have any questions so far, make sure you type them in the chat, because right at the end, I'm going to go just hammer through all of the Q&A. And I'd like you guys to post your questions before. And I can't see the chat yet, so if you already asked a question, ignore. Okay, cool. Roadmap to success. The first thing is outlining what your sales process is. And the simplest version of this, if you don't have this mapped out already, is just step by step. An inbound lead comes through. This is like the prospect's journey. An outbound lead is in your lead list. What does it look like from the perspective of the buyer? From never hearing of your product or service to purchasing. And I want that process really clearly outlined for inbound and for outbound. Now, the pretty way of doing this is to have a beautiful flow chart where everything comes together and it's incredible. Not mandatory, but that's nice. The bare minimum, though, you need the clear steps so the sales reps have a good understanding of how we actually close deals here. How do people hear of us? How long does this whole journey take, right? They might have some sense of it already from the interview process, but I want it very clear in your sales playbook. The next is more operational. So you can see here, like, how do we manage our leads? These are lead statuses. I have a whole CRM setup guide, which shares some best practices around building your CRM. I'll give you this as well too. It's in the sales playbook template. So you'll see that there. Then there's the sales stages. So I like seeing a flow chart of all of the different deal stages, what they mean, the exit criteria, different meetings that take place. You'll see I have qualification methodology hyperlinked here, discovery guide, demo guide, and CRM setup guide. These are the 4 main things that you will use in this section. But how you qualify a deal, very important. We're clear about that. And side note, it needs to be objective qualifications. I don't like AEs disqualifying a deal just because they feel like it's not going to close, right? I want very objective. They have this criteria, yes or no. And none of those are feelings, nothing subjective. Then there's the discovery guide. How do we actually navigate a discovery guide? You can call this a discovery script. This might be a list of questions to help have a better discovery conversation. It might be word for word script that they follow during their discovery. You include that there. Then there's a demo guide. Now, whether it's a software product or if it's a service, demo guide is something really to help navigate walking through the solution, product or service, and how you break those up. I have a really specific way that I do it. I provided it here as a hyperlink, and then the CRM setup guide I already told you about. Ultimately, what I want your takeaway to be from this section here is we're clearly outlining what our sales process looks like, how we manage the leads, and then also how do we manage the deals. Okay, because those are the 2 main things that they're going to be worried about. Now, also include all of your, all of your sales messaging. I'll give you the outbound sequence framework that we use so you can adapt it to yours. If you don't have it already, that's hyperlinked here. But whatever messaging you're using from an outbound perspective, put it here. Even if it's automated. So like, let's say you're doing cold outbound emails, you have a system, you're sending a bunch of emails or whatever, put the messaging there so they can see it. If you have templates, scripts for following up with leads, for reaching out to past deals that never closed, whatever it is, all that should go here. There should basically be an entire messaging library here in the sales playbook. And if it gets crazy long, you can hyperlink to a messaging library where all the messaging is. That's totally fine, but I want them to have access to all the messaging that we're using for all of the main responsibilities that they'll have, and even some of the things that they might not be doing, but it's good for them to see, like email, like any automated email stuff, inbound follow-up, that kind of thing. Okay, so you put all your messaging here. Then we have our buy again strategy. So this here is a really important part of the sales playbook, in my opinion, but very few people actually do it if the sales people aren't responsible for renewals. I think even though your sales rep isn't responsible for renewals, you should still give them context on what happens. So have a flow chart here of what the process looks like post-sale. Now, most of you are going to have things like your onboarding process, that kind of thing, because the salesperson needs to be able to speak to it as part of the sales process. But then there's how many health checks are going on? Are we doing quarterly business reviews? What's going on with, like, how is account management or customer success interfacing with this customer over and over again? And then what does renewal look like, right? What's the process for renewal? Even if it's not their responsibility, I want the sales rep to have full context of the life cycle of a prospect that they close. Okay, tools to support you. This is where you list out your tech stack. If you know me, you know that I try to keep tech stacks very lean. I'm not a huge fan of jumping around and trying everything. So your CRM, where we get our data from, dialer, how we record calls, how we execute on our sales tasks, which might be built into the CRM. Maybe you're using SalesLoft, Outreach. Some of you are using HubSpot. You're going to use their sales professional. Totally fine. There's some bonus ones here. Intent data, not a huge fan of it, but a lot of people use it. So maybe you have something there. Routing leads. Once you get to a certain point, lead routing becomes a big challenge. So having a system that helps manage how you route leads is really helpful. And then scheduling, this is like a calendar link or something like that, that you'll probably have through your CRM, because most CRMs include it. I have a tech stack selection guide here, which just lists some of the tools that I like to use and just some vendors that I like, that I update it every now and then. But ultimately, like, I want you to keep your tech stack as lean as possible. That's why I like HubSpot, because a lot of the stuff is built in to HubSpot, so you don't have to go crazy. There is no shortage of sales tools that claim to be the best possible thing for your sales reps' efficiency. And the reason for that is because whenever you can tie something to sales, strong ROI, right? You can just do all these crazy calculations. Like, look, the ROI is insane. But rarely do I find it works out all that great. There's certain things that they're going to need to have. I've already mentioned those. The other things are really, like, you should only be considering to solve specific problems that the sales team is running into, and then you use a tool to solve that problem. But there's more sales tech today than ever before. They all claim huge ROI numbers, yet sales teams still struggle. Explain that to me. 50% of sales reps hit quota. So I don't know if it's working, is sort of my point. And in fact, when you add more tools, it complicates the workflow of the reps, which can cause them also to struggle, because they're spending less time on things that we just know are effective. That goes back to the process I was talking about earlier. What's the process that we follow? You need that. And that's based on fundamentals. It's based on fundamentals. There's no tool that's going to solve your sales problem. Your process solves it based on fundamentals, and then you use tools to help accelerate or solve specific challenges that you might have. All right, I probably beat that hard enough. Hopefully, if you have any questions around, let me know, but hopefully you get my point. And then we have onboarding guide and resource hub. So you can see I have SDR onboarding guides, AE onboarding guides, and the checklists for both of them. You can use it. Do you need to keep this in your sales playbook? Totally up to you. I generally do. But if you want to just give them the onboarding guide as separate to the sales playbook, you totally can. And then a checklist of onboarding. If you have a resource hub, like, hey, here are all of our marketing resources, please include the resource hub in there. So, like, hey, here are all of our case studies. Here is a landing page that we use for whatever. Here are the different vertical one pagers. Whatever you have, make sure the resource hub is there. And that resource hub should be in here, like linked in here. And then if you update it, like, that link should stay true. You want to keep these things as up to date as possible. So and the way to do that, by the way, is to make somebody own it and to actually use it. Send people to go back to the sales playbook. All right, let's talk about performance culture. This is very critical, but often kind of hidden behind closed doors. I want to be very clear with every SDR, with every AE, what their role is. How are we holding them accountable? Here are the KPIs. What metrics are you looking at? What do they mean to you? I just put 3 here, but whatever your main metrics are, you put them here. Meetings booked, meetings showed up. Maybe it's just those 2. Activities, I 100% would put that here. If I have an SDR, I want them doing 100 calls a day. Great, 100 calls a day, booking 1 to 3 appointments per day, whatever it is for you, or 1 appointment every 2 days, just depends on your industry. I want to be very clear with what I'm expecting. These are the metrics I'm looking at. This is what I'm expecting from you. I also track activity for any outbound teams or any team, even inbound, any team calling our customers or sending emails to our customers. Side note, I prefer calling. I think email can be done by AI now. Talk to me a year ago, I wouldn't have said that. Today, I think email is better done by AI than a human. So I want to track their activity. So even if they are emailing, I'll put it here, but I want to know how many calls they're making, how many people answered the phone, how many meetings did they book, how many meetings showed up. I track it in this spreadsheet. Is it tracked in the CRM? Yeah. I also want it here because I want the rep typing in the number. I want them to take ownership of their data. Hey, I only made 80 calls today. I got to catch up tomorrow or I'm not going to hit my number, right? Like that's the level of intention I want the SDRs to have. So I give you the tracking sheet that I used. Feel free to customize it the way you want to. If AEs are doing their own prospecting, which I recommend them do too, I recommend them filling this out as well. Now, it's not just a track for tracking's sake. It's going to calculate the percentages and it's going to allow you as a leader to go, okay, shoot, our dial to connect rate is low. I need to fix that. Oh, James, his connect to meeting book rate is super low. Sarah's is really high. Hey, Sarah, what are you doing different? That's what it's there for. It's to help you really get clear about what your process is and reverse engineer what's working for some reps so that all the reps can start using it, lift all boats. Okay, quota. I give reps quota calculators so they can calculate based on their quota, how much money that they'll make and what they have to do on a daily basis to hit that number. You'll also see like it'll allow them to play with it. It's like, hey, I want to make a little bit more money. How many more activities would I have to do? Right. So I want math behind our quota. Now, some of you might be building a team for the first time. And you're like, I don't know what math I have, or I have no math. That's okay. We have to make some assumptions, go through and do the best that you can. All right. Also, I mention anything around performance management. So maybe you do a 30, 60, 90-day plan. That would be in here. Maybe there's quarterly check-ins, annual reviews, quarterly close loss reviews. Maybe you do that more frequently. PIPs. If you're doing PIPs, they should be in here. Hey, what happens when you don't hit your numbers? We have a PIP process. Biannual review, culture setting guide, and rep superpower, something else. Anything around performance management, what your one-on-one structures look like, anything like that, I put all in one place so it's very clear. No one can say I didn't know about it. Okay, that's the end of the template. That's also the end of the content. I'm going to give you a link to this template so you have it. If you want to sign up for one of our next live classes, we have a few coming up here soon that are really, they're all great, but that are really good, I think. So go to vouris.com/events. Let's jump to Q&A. While I'm switching here, let me grab this sales playbook template. All right, so I'm going to answer questions here. I'm very excited to give this to you. So here is the template. I just shared it. It's that doc that I just shared. In addition to that, it would mean the world to me if you were to fill out this survey. For those of you who have come to these before, you're like, Kyle, you need to stop with the survey. Okay, I posted the survey. This survey is super helpful for me. It's not a tricky sales thing. I have to like tell people that because they think like, oh, I'm gonna get cold called by somebody. The survey just tells me what you thought of this live class. And I use this, you give some ideas of what you like, maybe some other topics you want to cover. I use this to determine, one, should I keep doing this live class? You know, I might do this one near the end of the year. You know, we recycle them every 6 months or so. Or should I not do it? Sometimes you're bringing a guest and then your survey responses tell me never bring that person ever again. that doesn't happen, but you get the idea. The surveys really help me. And my objective, my dream one day is to have 100% of the audience fill out the survey. It's yet to happen. I got 80% once and I was floored, but usually it's only like 20% of you, which is heartbreaking. Today can be different and you can help. All right, I'm going to scroll to the top and start answering questions here. This isn't a question. This actually caught my mind. You look too young based on those results. I appreciate it. I actually had one advantage over a lot of people, which is I didn't go to college. Fun fact, I dropped out of college. I was doing stand-up comedy. Did not feel like finishing out my college career. So I jumped into the workforce a lot earlier. Also, Andrew, I'm very smart, so that helps too. All right. No AI in your tech stack. Yeah, I probably could update this. I use a lot of AI. I'm a big fan of AI. Last week we actually did the largest class we've ever done. I think it was 650 people registered for it. It was over 600, like a crazy amount of people registered for it. All about how to use AI to create cold emails. That's what we did last week. If you missed it, heartbreaking. I'm hesitant to add AI into a tech stack for sales reps, and unless the executive team has a really clear understanding of what they're going to be using that AI for. So I want prompts built for them, and I want it to be a lot more controlled. A lot of the call recording softwares use a ton of AI already, so that's why it's also not in there. I might update it, but I don't know. I think it needs. You have to be very thoughtful on how you implement AI. Okay, Grant Lawrence. Any chance there will be a recording of this? I arrived late and have to leave early. I was sad. So actually, fun fact, we used to not do recordings, but, and you might have already left, but this, what we implemented is on our website, on the events page, you'll see past events and you can opt in and access the recordings. So I don't send them out. I'm just not doing that. It's just like extra work for no reason. You guys can go to events, vouris.com/events, go to previous classes and just pick the one you want to watch. So yes, there is one. I think it takes a couple of days before it gets uploaded. My EA does it. All right. Is your recording going to be shared, please? I just addressed that. Also, this document looks mint. I love that. Please, can you share that as well? I did. Want a smarter, more cost-effective. Okay. Also heard, okay, here's a question. I also heard of a product called Go High Level that is a great alternative to HubSpot. Never use it. Not sure how great it is. Anyone here using it? I do. So I actually use Go High Level. I like it a lot. It's not great for like sales teams and whatnot, but for marketing automation, I love it. I use it for all of our marketing automation. And if you guys are on our list, you know, like most of the emails, the vast majority of the emails we send are telling you about the live class that's coming up so you can register for them. And all this is done through Go High Level. Every time you download a resource on our website, all of the flows, everything is done in Go High Level. It's okay for sales, like the sales, the pipeline stuff and all of that works well. It's just the analytics are pretty weak. So I wouldn't recommend it for a team that is trying to like really run a sales organization. But early on, I think it'll get you part of the way there. Not sales related, but what software are you offering this live training on? Great question. So I use a tool called StreamYard. I tried a bunch of them, by the way. We've used a ton. I love StreamYard. Love it. It's really, really good. And what's cool is it's embedded on our website. So they have like a traditional webinar type platform where people can sign up. I don't like the sign up forms. I feel like the conversion's a lot lower when you use weird sign up forms. So I just want like very clear way of people to sign up for the live class. I use a different tool for that. If you're curious, comment. I can tell you our whole workflow for the live classes. And if you want a live class about how to run these kind of live classes or webinars, that's something you put in the survey. Maybe I'll do it one day. And in fact, I did do it once a while ago and like no one signed up for it. So maybe it's bad, but my point is I do a ton of these. What I like about StreamYard is it covers all your bases. So traditional webinar where they sign up in StreamYard and you do like a normal webinar format. It also can be embedded on the website, which is what I use, because that way I can keep all of our follow-up links the same because they all link to the same web page or the same page on our website. Cool. Campbell was right. It was StreamYard. I'm clicking and viewing LinkedIn Live, yet I'm not seeing the link. Oh, my bad, Ryan. Ryan, I'm going to grab this. I forget. This also streams on LinkedIn, and I always forget that. So let me just throw this in there, then I'll get to the rest of the questions. Sorry for a brief delay in our scheduled programming. Here I am live. Let me comment. Boom. Sales Playbook. Cool. I just posted that for you, Ryan. Okay, so let me go back to my questions here. Ryan, you've been answered. Do you have that recording you can share? I already talked about the recording. This is more of a sales. Great content, but I feel like the title is misleading. This is more of a sales onboarding guide, not a how to sell to our audience. Still good stuff. Yes. So some people have a different definition of sales playbook. Sales playbook for me is a document that you have internal that you give a sales team or sales reps that they can constantly reference and understand what the process is, onboarded, access materials later when they need it. Some people have a slightly different definition. And I'm not like, maybe I should be more conscious of that. But the other definition is like, here's the sales playbook of like how you sell. And that's just not how I do it. So sorry about that, Janet. I don't fully I don't encounter a lot of people with that definition. So I just sometimes just do what I think. I've been in P Club every year since I heard of you, Kyle. Thank you for everything you do. Oh, thanks, Sean. I don't know what P Club is. Hopefully it's a good thing. To streamline sales and maximize time, do you recommend creating demos / webinars like this one and invite prospects to it? So yes, I have friends who do like demo webinars or like group webinars where they demo their products for software. And I've heard mixed things about it. Some people say it works really well. Some people haven't had a lot of success with it. This works great for me. Now, I don't do a lot of hard pitching here. Every now and then, like I'll offer something. Very rare, but we don't take on very many customers. So I kind of get the luxury to just do stuff like this. And then over time, you guys will get to a point where you're like, hey, I'm building a sales team. I should probably call Kyle. But when I do, so I've been doing this for 2 years, every week, just about, unless I'm traveling or it's a holiday. I have gone through phases where I try to book meetings, and I'll convert 25% of the audience into meetings when I do that. So I think it works really well, but it starts slow. So when I first did this, I had like 8 people would join live, and depends on the topic now, but we range between 50 people show up live to 150. I mean, I guess last week was even crazier than that, but generally about 150 to 300 people register every single week, and 40% show up depending on the class. And the title matters quite a bit too. The title matters. Like this one does pretty well. Some other ones just don't. All right, a bit off topic, but would love your thoughts. I manage our SDR team, and we are consistently hitting or surpassing 100% of our team's quota. Good job. We don't, however, have any SDRs consistently hitting or exceeding our OTE figure. In previous orgs, I learned how important it is to have front runners helping show others what's possible financially and with performance. How would you go about trying to have 10 to 20% of your reps hit that high end? Okay, very good question, Dylan. This is actually going to be helpful for everybody. Quotas. If you hit your quota, every single month, you should hit your OTE number. That's how quota should be. Quota is built around the OTE. This is what I do. If you go to our website under the resource page, downloads or something, whatever we call it, you'll see I have a quota calculator or something. It's a compensation plan, and you can use that to really make sure the math works out. So I would prefer 100% to quota being the OTE number. And the reason why is really for this reason. Hey, I'm hitting my number. Oh yeah, I hit my number. It's like, you're leaving money on the table, right? But I hit my number. Like, how am I, in order for me to hit my OTE, I have to way overperform the number you're giving me. There's just a disconnect there. So the first thing I would recommend is trying to straighten that out. If not, how I work with reps to try to get them to overperform is by showing them the amount of money that they're leaving on the table. And you might think like, oh, they're probably doing that already. Maybe they're not. So it's actually in the sales playbook template that I just gave you. If you go through and you walk them step by step through the math, hey, here's how many deals, this is what you're currently doing. If you were just to increase your call volume by 20%, so hey, you're making 80 calls right now. If you just made 100 calls, this is how much money you would make. So show them the impact. That usually works. All right. Our team has created sales and marketing platform that's as if HubSpot and Go High Level have a baby. Oh, that's cool. Okay. Oh yeah, President's Club, of course. P Club. I've never called the P Club. I've always just called the President's Club. That's funny. Yeah. I should have gotten that. Founder-led sales. If you don't hit your number, yeah, this is so true, by the way. Founder-led sales. If you don't hit your number, your company ceases to exist and you can't hire reps or have a job. What do you think having SDRs is a good motion? What are your thoughts on having no SDRs and AEs do the whole motion on inbound booking and then closing? So inbound leads, you actually can get away with this really well. or you just had the AEs manage all inbound leads that come through. The problem, so there's a couple of things. Why do we have SDRs and AEs in the first place? The goal is to drive down cost of sales. I think a lot of folks forget this. The whole reason you do it is to drive down cost of sales, because it costs less to have an SDR cold calling, booking appointments than it is the AE. An AE's base salary might be 80, 100K. The SDR's base salary is going to be 50K. So you save money on appointments getting booked. So that's the first part of this. The second part of this is the AEs, when they do their own prospecting, and this is way more common for outbound than inbound, by the way. But let's do outbound for an example, because I think it illustrates the point. There'll be 1 month where they don't have a lot of meetings, so they do a ton of prospecting, book meetings. The next month, they're focused on closing deals, so they do really well next month. Then they don't prospect, so what happens the month after that? Performance drops, because now they need to book meetings, and they're like, I need more meetings. So you end up getting these peaks and valleys in performance. You can smooth that out by just having more reps. You can also smooth that out by having a dedicated role that's just focused on booking appointments. And again, you're paying less per appointment because you pay that role less than you pay the account executives. That's the idea. Now, another benefit is you get to promote those SDRs to AEs, and that's generally where your best talent will come from. So that's sort of the high level of it. For inbound orgs, it's pretty common, especially early on. We'll start by hiring an account executive that can reach out to all inbound leads when they come through. And if you haven't heard me say this before, I expect a inbound lead, so someone who filled out a form on the website to download a resource, book a meeting, whatever it is. I recommend them getting called within 2 minutes. Now, if they book directly on the calendar, you don't need to call them. But if they've opted in, they said like, hey, requesting more information, or I would like to book a demo, or they downloaded a white paper or a resource on your website, call them within 2 minutes. I can have the AE doing that, and then also doing the demos. It's totally fine. How do you justify a playbook to resistance clients? I've actually never met a client that's resistant to having a sales playbook. I mean, if they just don't want things documented, fine. But you need somewhat, you have to document your problem. What is, you're just going to keep it in your brain? That's a sales playbook. If you document your process, that's a sales playbook. Now, how robust is your sales playbook might be the scale that you guys disagree on. I've never encountered somebody that's pushed back on the sales playbook that I would recommend to them. But I just have a lot of authority in the space, so that could be why they're just like, well, we're just going to listen to what Kyle says. So anyway, I don't have a great answer to that, unfortunately, because I don't encounter it very often. All right. No more questions. Let me wind down here. And if another question pops up, I'll try to answer it. Thank you so much for joining. Every Thursday I'm here, unless I'm traveling or if it's a holiday. And there's a lot you can be doing on Thursday. You choose to spend it with me. I really appreciate that. If you can do the survey, I forgot to remind you guys 1,000 times about the survey. My fault. I'm going to throw the survey one more. So before you actually leave, please fill out the survey. One more question here, and then I'm going to jump. What's your thought on using the BANT framework for SDRs? A lot of prospects hesitate on seeing the value when they see the pricing and seeing the platform. I don't think SDR should cover BANT, B, or T. They need to identify a need and the level of authority that you're expecting from them. So it might not be the full authority level, but it's an authority level you'll accept. I don't care. I don't want an SDR to validate budget. And for a lot of products, budgets will get justified once seeing it. Now, in more complex sales, more enterprise sales, it's not uncommon for you just to be totally handcuffed by budget. So that would be an exception to that. But I don't need the SDR doing a lot of that stuff. I want the AEs having those conversations. Super helpful, blah, blah, blah. As always, you're a rockstar. Thank you, Teresa. Great content. Thank you. Awesome. Another Greek guy here, it looks like. Christos. Thank you very much. I appreciate all of your time, and we'll talk soon. Bye.